Goosebumps is one of these franchises that has a very cult following, but its following goes so hard for it that the franchise actually has a strong presence on social media, especially YouTube. I personally won't get into discussing the books too much because even though I have nostalgia for staring at the covers at the school and public library growing up, I never really was into reading as a kid. But the TV series now, I started watching that as early as 1999 when I was 3 years old. I've seen it over and over and over and over. I own it, well, except the one episode that's never been put on home media. And I have a pretty good grasp on what one would expect if they were to venture through it for the first time. I think most of us see Goosebumps as a representation of simpler times in our lives, which is why we keep coming back to it. But let's be real, some episodes are far better than other episodes. I mean, far, far better. So today I've ordered all 74 episodes of the 1995 Goosebumps anthology horror TV series, from atrocious to worst to best. Hopefully this video doesn't go on too long, but if it does, then watch some of it now and watch the rest when you get a chance. Now, the first 20 or so episodes are, of course, the series' weakest, and spoiler alert, a lot of it has to do with corny acting or just boring to atrocious delivery as a whole. While the middle 20 I won't really have much to say because they neither suck or are amazing. Kinda that gray area, which to me is actually the worst place to be. And then the final 20 will get extra shine and praise, as these to me are some of the most solid episodes in children's TV history. Now, I know you already know what the worst episode of Goosebumps is. Like, let's say together on three. 1, 2, Strain Peas. Season 3, Episode 17. Now, everybody collectively in the Goosebumps community knows how atrocious this episode is, as, it has the lowest rated scores on websites and it ranks at the bottom of anybody's list online. Now, most of the issues with this episode is self-explanatory, as you can witness the visuals on the screen, but what I will say is, are you serious? No, like honestly, this was a good idea to you? Everything about this episode sucks. The writing, the acting, specifically of the baby. Like, what is this? The story? Like, the new baby to the family is evil. Wants to get rid of the older brother so it could only be her. Man, get this out of here. I'll tell you a secret though. Personally, it isn't the most unwatchable for me. Actually, I found it pretty entertaining considering how bad it is, but I'm aware how unacceptable this production was. Oh, there is some interesting trivia here. The parents and the son in this episode are actually husband and wife and son in real life. So, that's a pretty cool experience for all of them. Number 73, Teacher's Pet. Season 3, Episode 22. Nothing to say here. If I do, I may fall asleep recording this video. Ridiculous. Not a good look for the season 3 finale here. Hybrid animals and a weirdo teacher is what's to be found. It's just not done properly. Teacher's Pet was the last one-off episode in the series, as season 4 is a short season, just a handful of two-parters. This episode kind of ends sad too, as the main girl here, Becca, died December of '97 from meningitis in real life. She was 16 years old. You'll see an in loving memory for her before the credits. Number 72, An Old Story. Season 3, Episode 6. Okay, this episode is terrible. It's about two brothers being babysat by an older relative who feeds them a bunch of nonsense that makes them age. Some kind of spell that's going on, I guess it's some kind of service she has for selling old ladies' husbands, and this is the way she goes about doing it. This could have been handled more edgy, even though it's supposed to be for kids, it could have been more edgy. It just kind of comes off lame, honestly, and doesn't accomplish scaring or entertaining anyone. The episode actually recycles B-roll of the house from another episode, and yeah. Spoiler, the bottom half of this list is mainly made up of the second half of the show. The problem with season 3 is that it has majority of the experimental episodes in there that are not from the original Goosebumps book series and come from short story spin-offs called Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Old Story happens to be one of them. Number 71, The Haunted House Game, Season 3, Episode 10. Long story short, Goosebumps has way better episodes about the misadventures that follow after entering a strange abandoned house. This one here ain't it, bro. First of all, the whole transition between walking to school for the pep rally, randomly waddling into this old house and then finding a random board game and getting sucked in was mediocre at best. No chill, no thrill, nothing. 2 thumbs down. A lot of the other mediocre episodes to come on this list has aesthetics as a redeeming quality. Haunted House Game doesn't even have that. And the poorly composed house music only makes it worse. And finally, the last thing I want to say about this, Homie's acting. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, this episode was not good. Not all non-original book adaptations are this terrible, but in this case, I'd say being a short story from the Tales to Give You Goosebumps series could contribute to why this is so lackluster. And lastly, the beginning part and very end of this episode reminds me a little too much of a certain season of American Horror Story. Number 70, Vampire Breath, Season 2, Episode 17. I'm not sure if this is so low because I don't like vampires or if the episode actually sucks. Either way, here we are. In search of their birthday gifts, they find a secret door in the crib and look where these kids end up. That's all I want to speak on this. Its main issue is boring and lack of inspiration. Good effort on the setting and the scenes for aesthetics though. Also, the sister in this episode did a movie named Jumper with another Goosebumps actor who was in Night of the Living Dummy 3. Number 69, You Can't Scare Me, Season 2, Episode 7. I'm still deciding if eating nails while listening to a dying cat for 20 minutes is worse than watching this episode. So, these two idiots spend the whole episode trying to scare Courtney, and it's failure after failure as it seems like nothing bothers her. It's not that there wasn't some good ideas in terms of the story, but honestly, where is the scare, the horror, the suspense? And most importantly, the entertainment. I just didn't feel anything here. It has the whole swamp monster thing if you're into that, but beyond that, it really is a forgettable episode and a pain to watch. Like, how does what's supposed to be a tormenting scene turn into a therapy session? Yeah, get this up out of here. Episode 68 and 67, Ghost Next Door, Season 4, Episode 3 and 4. Hannah suspects her new neighbor and family that moved in is a ghost. So she goes over and starts doing what suspecting people do. Suspect things. Joke's on her though. Alright, I don't like this episode. I never have and I never will. That probably would ruffle some feathers as I know many people grew up on Ghost Next Door. And I know it's my sister's favorite. But nah, I always hated it growing up. I didn't like when she would rent it from the library. For me, it's not Goosebumps enough, if that makes any sense. I found it to be too drama and thriller based as opposed to horror based. The acting was pretty good in there and, a cool twist at the halfway mark of the story, but overall it didn't accomplish much. Especially this whole training arc that Hannah goes through mid-episode. Like, what are we doing? Anyways, that's the show, but what's crazy is how close I live to Danny and Hannah's house in real life. Like, the same area of the same town. And then the post office area, which is in Lakeshore, is an area I'm always around. So that's what I got to say about Ghost Next Door. Talk to me in the comments if you disagree. Number 66, Return of the Mummy, Season 1, Episode 9. Gabe goes on an adventure to Egypt visiting his uncle and cousin. Whoever wakes this ancient mummy whose tomb his uncle is about to explore will be haunted and avenged by the mummy. Now, I don't like mummies. I never really been into mummy type stories. At least I don't like mummy themed episodes in horror. But this episode was pretty okay. Keyword, okay. Some additional info here. This is one of a couple examples in the Goosebumps series where one book gets an episode adaptation that is not its preceding book. In this case, The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb book, which came out before Return of the Mummy. Episodes 65 and 64. How I Got My Shrunken Head, Season 4, Episode 1 and 2. Not actually a bad episode, but not enough standing out to push it past the halfway point of the list. Make no mistake, it has its scary moments. I remember them vividly when I was a kid watching that 9 o'clock YTV slot back in the day. But it is what it is. By the time you get to this season, it really makes you appreciate watching some of the episodes in the first 2 seasons, which of course, we'll get to more of those as the list progresses. The episode here is about little Mark, who's obsessed with jungleology and voodooism, I guess. He was shipped this little shrunken head thing that's been acting suspicious from, honestly, the very beginning of the story, and things only get weirder and weirder when Mark takes an invitation to go visit his aunt in the jungle somewhere on the other side of the world. Number 63, Say Cheese and Die. Again, Season 3, Episode 18. I think the reason many hate Say Cheese and Die Again is because Ryan Gosling is replaced by some R.C. Cola knockoff. In this sequel, he returns to the spot he first found and left the evil camera when his teacher fails him for not believing that his paper was based on events we saw in the original Say Cheese and Die. Obviously, he has amnesia and forgot what happened the first time he went up in there and messed with that thing. What I don't understand is why they couldn't have rounded up the cast from the original. I mean, this just felt a little bit off, especially because the first cast did such a good job acting and this one was aight. However, I would say this was a pretty decent follow-up overall. Number 62, The Barking Ghost, Season 3, Episode 7. Alright, this one's okay. Just another fly-by-night experience. Lured into the woods are these kids by some dogs with an ancient past. There's a reason why the dogs wanted to trade places, but that's for you to see the episode and find out. Comment below, but this is an episode I don't find too many people have nostalgia for. It's just kind of there. Number 60 and 61, A Night in Terror Tower, Season 1, Episode 16 and 17. I never really liked this episode very much. It's probably the whole ancient Europe thing that never really attracted me like in anything that I've ever watched. But Sue and Eddie go on a family trip out to London. While separated from their parents, they take a tour of Terror Tower, which takes a turn for the worst. I find this episode strays too far away from what Goosebumps is all about. I think I said this earlier, which is to come in quickly in under an hour and scare you. Whereas this one's more dramatic and honestly could have just been some Disney Channel original movie instead. Yeah, it's boring, though the medieval times or maybe it's the Victorian era, I think. Whatever, either way, they did a good job casting, actualizing the setting so it's believable, and even the thematics and the episode score were on point. That's all, but you know, there's better to come. #59, The Headless Ghost, Season 2, Episode 5. Certain viewers might be mad at me over this episode's placement because they love ghost stories, but let's be real. This one is one of the most boring and unfulfilling episodes in the series. It has all the ingredients to being a great scary episode, like creepy setting and somewhat decent acting, but overall the delivery just didn't happen. The story being told here about the kid who ended up dying eating strawberry ice cream just wasn't enticing, much less believable, and I'm sorry. This one, it ain't it. The ending does get exciting a tad bit, but overall, still forgettable. Also, the house shot here is a known heritage house in Toronto called Cawthra Elliott Estate, which is literally not far from where I live now. Number 58, Phantom of the Auditorium, Season 1, Episode 7. This is a story about a bunch of kids doing a school play that's unofficially based on the Phantom of the Opera. Rumor has it there's an actual phantom that's been haunting the school for ages. This one kind of suffers from just not being that scary. It's actually quite childish. Even as a kid, I never really felt this episode for real. I will say though, they created a nice setting with what they've done with the school, Lawrence Park Collegiate Institute in Toronto in real life. Not of the worst, but definitely not of the best either. This dude though is creepy as hell. Number 57, Don't Go to Sleep, Season 3, Episode 4. Alright, this little guy is 12 years old and is so tired of being treated like a kid compared to his older brother and sister. He never gets anything he wants. Man, this one hits so close to home because I remember hating my household and existence at that very age. Zach takes a trip up to the attic and falls asleep reading a comic book. I guess the attic is magical or something, but it transports him to an alternate reality where everything is the way he was just crying for it to be. Cautionary tale alert, being a kid isn't the worst thing in the world, and what you want may not quite be what you want. Also, you don't want the responsibilities that come with being older or being an adult. I could attest to that. This is a pretty corny episode with an equally corny theme song to match, but yeah, it's not bad.
That's reality. The only real truth is that of the mind.
56. Piano Lessons Can Be Murder. Season 1, Episode 8. I'm not gonna lie. That scene when this kid started playing the piano and the ghost appeared behind him, I'll never forget renting this episode from the library as a kid and seeing that for the first time. But that's where it stops. The episode still ain't the greatest. Generic Goosebumps story, or horror for that matter, where a kid moves into a new home and an object of interest is haunted. Nothing special. I'm sure a lot of you rank it higher, and I don't blame you, but rewatch it and then ask yourself if nostalgia factors deeply into your opinion. Number 55, My Hairiest Adventure, Season 1, Episode 11. Now, a lot of people don't like this episode, but it's one of the more entertaining ones in terms of the mystery of the episode. I don't even want to spoil too much, but these kids rub some tanning lotion on themselves, and yeah, the rest is history. This is another location that's not too far from where I'm at too, the neighborhood and all of that.
Now this seems familiar.
54, Ghost Beach, Season 2, Episode 9. Again, never was a fan of ghost stories. Actually, I think Are You Afraid of the Dark handled them much better. But this one is about a brother and sister visiting distant relatives in the country per Goosebumps usual. There's some ancient ghosts living out there in some cave that's gonna capture the kids and bury them. So it's time to get the ghost before it gets them. Cool trivia time. The guy who directed this episode also did some work on the Twilight Zone reboot from the 80s, so it does stand out a bit from other episodes in terms of direction and overall vibe. Number 53, Don't Wake Mummy, Season 2, Episode 22. Okay, we got the other Mummy episode here. So this one is a short story from Even More Tales to give you goosebumps. Once again, I don't like Mummy episodes, but this one was actually pretty cool. Dad sends home an enclosed mummy and hieroglyphic from Africa, and no one expected it to come to life and terrorize the family. I like how they designed this mummy compared to the other Mummy episode because it actually creeps me the hell out. A lot of this has to do with how much detail they put into the design. It's a lot thicker and more real. I do think they overdid this episode as far as the older sister's antics, but nah man, this wasn't bad. If anyone cares, I turned 1 year old the day this episode aired, and once upon a time there was a VHS tape that had my first birthday party recorded. Quite possibly while that birthday party was going on, some kid or kids in that same apartment in the projects was tuning into the premiere of this episode. Food for thought. Number 52, It Came From Beneath the Sink, Season 1, Episode 14. Another supernatural phenomenon when kids move to a new home. This time it's an evil sponge that they can't get rid of, and it won't behave itself. This one was alright to me, but most people rank it as one of the better episodes of the series. Oh hey, it's the same kid from Strain Peas. Number 51 and 50, Attack of the Mutant. Big little Skipper here loves comics, and his father is not too fond of this. Forget his father though, Skipper's obsession finally confronts him when he gets a chance to go to his favorite comic hero's headquarters, which, because this is kids television, randomly pops up in real life one day. After that, things get weirder and weirder. Another cautionary tale that connects to an old saying that goes, the things you own end up owning you. This is a fun favorite and I enjoyed it over the years. And that plant, which I believe shut down now in Toronto, is an actual area I've driven past many times. Number 49, 48, 47, Trilogy, Season 3, Episode 19 to 21. This episode was tough to place because it's not all the way bad, but isn't all the way good either. The story is about Carlsville, a magical miniature toy set that sucks in its owners in, and they're stuck in a game with this guy. Of course, strange things begin to happen and they gotta find some luck of the mill to get ejected out of the toy set. Trilogy is the longest episode in the series and there's 3 different stories, one for each episode part. The first one is a life lesson about greed and the love of money being the root of evil, while the other 2 are just unfortunate circumstances. It's a hit or a miss. I really like the premise of people getting transported into this little toy world where I see a lot of people that don't like this episode. Overall, it's cool to see how all three episodes do somewhat tie up loosely towards the end of the third, quite dramatically though. We know for sure it isn't legendary by any means, but here's where it ended up on the list, so yeah. What makes this episode unique in Goosebumps is that it's the only episode in the series not to be based on a book from R.L. Stine. Complete TV original, almost like filler in anime. Location of Carlsville, of course, was the Distillery District downtown Toronto, which is where it gets that old school look from. Number 46, Bad Hair Day, Season 2, Episode 4. Now, I really enjoyed this one mainly for its aesthetic. It's about a kid whose passion and ambition for magic gets him into a pretty hairy situation trying to meet his favorite magician. The episode has an excellent use of coloring hues and eeriness to the eye, regardless of the story being kind of goofy.
Here we go. Yikes.
We get Tony!
It's about time.
Number 45, More Monster Blood, Season 2, Episode 16. The unofficial sequel to the original Monster Blood. I wasn't all the way impressed. The flight attendant was cute and all, but I kind of expected more from an episode where all things go haywire on a plane. I will say the aura of being on a plane in the dark clouds and whatnot was cool though. I remember watching this in elementary school on white TV in the early 2000s. Episode 44 and 43, Deep Trouble, Season 4, Episode 7 and 8. I do got a thing for aquatics, so, it adds extra points to my ranking, but Deep Trouble is one of those episodes that feel more drama-based than horror-based. This is actually Goosebumps' series finale. Welcome to this wonderful Caribbean island, despite the filming location being up here at Lake Ontario, which, man, I haven't been there since my age was still a single digit. During exploration of the sea on a visit to a relative, Billy and Sheena make an interesting discovery. Of course, this collides with the research and investigation their uncle and team got going on the island. Deep Trouble scores an A for aesthetic, just because of the nature of the story, of course, and choosing Lake Ontario helps. Southern Ontario has a lot of waterfronts and, that also has plenty of green surrounding it and stuff. So this is a side note, but it contributes to why people love Goosebumps so much and don't even know it. The Etobicoke, North York area of Toronto, as well as Lakeshore, which most of the series was filmed, has a very unique aesthetic and design, which sets it apart from a lot of places they probably could have chose. Montreal is pretty unique in a similar way too, about 5 to 7 hours away, and is where they shot Are You Afraid of the Dark? And they also shot that in British Columbia too, which has a very, very greeny, suburban kind of vibe to it. But back on track. People who are into Goosebumps, the books, which is a lot of people, may notice that the story for this episode is based on the second Deep Trouble book, Deep Trouble 2, but the episode advertises it as Deep Trouble. This is another episode that shows a lot of Easter eggs from other episodes throughout the series' history and has actors from other shows like I previously mentioned about Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Fake.
Number 42, Be Careful What You Wish For, Season 2, Episode 1. Another cautionary tale for why you should not sell your soul. The devil may give you what you ask for, but there's no particular rules for how he has to let things play out. And that's what happened to Samantha Bird, who's tired of being a loser. She asked the wrong things to the wrong way to this mysterious woman, who offers her 3 wishes. Oh, the nostalgia for how much me and my younger sister used to rent this episode from the library when we were kids. For all my people in Toronto, you'd be shocked to know that this episode's outdoor scenes were shot in Mimico Memorial Park, which I happened to take plenty of my dates off Tinder this past summer. So yeah, lots of iconic activities took place at this park over multiple decades.
Worms are nature's perfect creatures.
Number 41, Go Eat Worms, Season 2, Episode 6. Here's a cool Easter egg. Did you know that the kid who plays the main character Todd went on to be 40, Drake's right-hand producer and engineer? His name is Noah Shabib, but yeah, Go Eat Worms. I'm writing these as I'm watching this, so I don't know if you heard me say this in one of the episodes earlier on the list, so my apologies, but the things you own end up owning you. That's one of the main things that stand out in Goosebumps to me, and Todd is no exception to this rule with his obsession with worms. Go watch the episode to see how it plays out. It's one of the stronger ones. 40, Monster Blood. Do you remember a Canadian show called Life with Derek? Well, the witch villain in this episode played the mother in that show. That's a side note, but yeah, Monster Blood was cool. Dude goes to visit his strange auntie while his parents are house hunting in ATL, and him and his new friend sneak into a prohibited room and find this jar. The rest is history. Early on, I mentioned more Monster Blood and how I wasn't impressed. That's because it followed up behind this one. And just like Trilogy, this is an original episode that was made for TV and not adapted from one of these Goosebumps books. Most fans don't like this about the show because apparently the actual sequel to Monster Blood was a good read and would have made a good episode. Lastly, this was going to be titled Flight Monster Blood, but they changed it right before it came out.
Andy Evans' friend. Are you related to the Chicago Evans friends?
Number 39 and 38, Werewolf Skin, Season 3, Episode 13 and 14. Another kid gets dropped off in the middle of nowhere to visit family, and you guessed it, there's something strange going on out there. I mean, if you're gonna go somewhere named Wolf Creek, what do you expect? This isn't as good as the other werewolf episode that we'll get to much further down in the list, but it's not bad either. There's a legend going around about the skin of a werewolf, and Alex finds out that it's true. Now, Goosebumps didn't really hide the fact that it was shot in Canada, but this episode actually gave it away pretty aggressively with the shirt that this bus lady is wearing. Trans-Terrio is a charter bus service that does tours and stuff. I think the company is more up in the boondocks towns outside of Toronto, but yeah, that's a cool Easter egg. Canada's biggest Goosebumps fan actually went out to the location in real life, so you could go check out her channel to see that. But yeah, this is an alright episode, guys. Much better than I even remembered. It also was one of a few episodes that doesn't have a reliable home media release as it's only available on VHS. The VHS ain't hard to find, but it's just like, who wants to watch VHS? Come on, man, it's time for a box set. Number 37, Click, Season 3, Episode 5. Yeah, the episode that got ripped off and turned into an Adam Sandler flick. This one is about Fatso here who orders a Super TV remote offline, or the TV, I don't remember which, but he orders it to the house and discovers he can control the reality around him with it. It isn't too long before he lets it get to his head, as most people do when they get a bit of power, and by the end of the episode, he learns the real consequences behind all of this. This one is more of a nostalgia pick, but I do think the episode is objectively up there. Also, Click isn't adapted from any of the original Goosebumps books. It's one of the short stories in the RL book, Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Number 36 and 35, Cry of the Cat, Season 4, Episode 5 and 6, Halloween. Well guys, this is the only episode out of Season 4 to make it so high in this list. To me, the second last episode of the Goosebumps series is objectively well done. In 1998, regardless if the spirit of Goosebumps had kind of been drained out of the TV series, we can't pretend like the show wasn't at the pinnacle of production. So Cry of the Cat was able to maximize a lot of the effects and technology and just so happened to have a decently written story with a few really good actors here. It's also the other Goosebumps series 2000 book to make it to the TV series. It's about a girl actor here, Allison Rogers, who's in the middle of shooting a movie that's supposed to blow her up as an actress. Things start going sideways when she's riding home one day and ran over a evil cat by mistake. Now the cat is back over and over again haunting her. Actually, she's getting possessed. I'm not sure why, but I like the episode, man. It's well done. And yeah, it's a corny and predictable tale based on the myth that cats have 9 lives. Yeah, it's from Season 4, but nah, it's actually well done. There's a bunch of actors recognizable from other episodes in this one, like Allison also did Calling All Creeps, and she might have been that Asian-looking girl talking to Mary Beth in the street in Haunted Mask 2. Tons of Easter eggs pay tribute to other episodes, and even other real horror series are saluted in this episode, like The Exorcist. Good work. Number 34, My Best Friend is Invisible, Season 3, Episode 2. Alright, here's what it is. Good idea, great climax, but took way too long to unfold. And when it did unfold, it's meh. These are words I initially wrote about 5 minutes left into the episode. But when I saw how this ending played out, this episode bumped its way like 10 episodes ahead of where I originally had it. This is most definitely my personal favorite plot twist ending. And if you've seen the episode, then you know what I'm talking about. This dude and his friends went into Hedge House, which legend has it is haunted. From there, a ghost basically follows him home. But it takes almost a whole episode for the ghost to reveal itself, so most of the time, sadly, is a bunch of empty, suspenseful moments. But trust me, it is worth the wait. I honestly didn't expect this. Last thing I want to mention about this one is how much this kid is a sissy. It's annoying as hell though, so prepare for that. Number 33, The Blob That Ate Everyone. Season 2, Episode 23. Can we be honest here? The episode in the book it adapted is damn right plagiarism of Are You Afraid of the Dark's Dream Machine episode, about a mystical typewriter that brings to life whatever the author composes. That is literally what happens in this Goosebumps story, 4 years after Are You Afraid of the Dark's. And for anyone who wants to say the book may have come first and this and that, not true. The book came out the same year as the episode. That to the side. The episode is actually better than the Dream Machine episode though. One of my favorites in the series. If you sit back and consider what you could do with such a demonic item, the possibilities are endless. A+ on setting the vibe of suspense, and I like these kids. The ending is corny as hell though, but yeah. Number 32, Calling All Creeps, Season 2, Episode 19. You got a nerd, you got daily humiliation, you got attempted revenge backfiring, which turns into an awkward run-in with aliens. These are the recipe for a fun episode if executed right. And boy, did they execute Calling All Creeps right. I thought most of the acting in the ep was pretty good. There was diversity in all the selected cast members in terms of aesthetics, and Calling All Creeps was just done right. I wouldn't say it was all that scary, but it sure was damn entertaining. And at the end, hey, Ricky did what he had to do, man, and I respect it.
Can't beat him.
Number 31, How to Kill a Monster, Season 2, Episode 18. Dropped off in the middle of nowhere, meet step-siblings Gretchen and Clark, who get thrown for a ride when they show up to their grandparents' house, and don't find their grandparents at first. Shortly after they do, they find something else. I like this episode a lot. Excellent location as it embodies another swamp setting. I noticed that there are more countryer, or like the more countryer episode is, the better the episode tends to be. Not sure, but comment down below and tell me if you agree. And that ending, man, whew.
So, got any more ideas?
Number 30 and 29, Welcome to Camp Nightmare, Season 1, Episode 5 to 6. Okay, a bus full of kids are dropped off in the middle of nowhere, again, another country episode, en route to Camp Night Moon. But it's not quite the middle of nowhere. Now, this is by far one of the craziest plot twists in the entire series, and it really throws you for a loop. And it has the infamous Larry character. I visited Camp Samac in Simcoe, Ontario, and when I went there, there was actual summer camp going on. Unfortunately, man, last year I went to a lot of different places and this and that, and I don't know where the heck some of the footage is. I would have loved to put it in, but I don't got it no more. Now the episode is not one of my personal favorites, but I know a lot of you guys love Camp Nightmare, and I do respect it as one of the, top quality episodes in these series. Number 28, Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes, Season 2, Episode 8. I love this episode for how frustrating it is to watch. You and I and the kid in this episode know who's messing up the Major's yard, but no one else will believe it. We all were kids at some point, or maybe you're a kid right now who gets or has gotten in a lot of trouble for things you did not do. And it gets spookier and spookier as the episode progresses. In Goosebumps, Slappy is obviously the mascot, and rightfully so. But these gnomes don't often get the credit that they deserve as come-alive toys that cause treachery. Anyways, I got a lot of respect for Revenge of the Lawn Gnomes. Number 27, The Girl Who Cried Monster, Season 1, Episode 4. The tale of Lucy and Mr. Mortman, Reading Ranger's teacher by day, tarantula-eating monster by night. Now, I actually visited the library exterior for this episode, which was just a random house downtown Toronto. The interior I actually tried to go to at Emmanuel College downtown, but the asshole librarian pretty much shut the door in my face when I told him why I was trying to come up there. Pretty private place or whatever. It's not the most entertaining episode, but it is pretty creepy. And it also has arguably the most iconic plot twist ending in the entire Goosebumps franchise. Number 26, Awesome Ants, Season 3, Episode 15. Now, out of all the things you own end up owning you and tales to give you Goosebumps stories, this is my favorite one. It's really just the vibe, honestly, and the ending. This one's about, you guessed it, an ant obsession gone wild. Well, in this case, it's not really all the way obsessed, but a situation where curiosity almost killed the cat. The aspect of Awesome Ants that sticks in our brains is the total flipped ending that kind of distorted the entire reality of what the hell you just watched. Another non-original Goosebumps book episode, a short story from still more tales to give you goosebumps. It's a wonder why they managed to execute this episode, but they never thought that they could do Why I'm Afraid of Bees. I never understood that, but the main character in this episode also played Arthur for seasons 1 to 5 and has voice acted on the show since back then until 2022. Yeah, Awesome Ants though is pretty awesome. And by the way, kids, when you buy something and you see it has disclaimers and specific instructions, those are not suggestions. Please. Number 25, Shocker on Shock Street, Season 3, Episode 1. I probably got this lower than most of you probably would, and trust me, I got the same nostalgia for it that you do. I remember renting it as a kid and crushing on the girl or whatever, but Shocker on Shock Street isn't the masterpiece I remember it to be. It does have enough entertainment and suspense to be considered a solid episode, but it just isn't in the top 10 or anything for me. It was pretty scary when I was younger. I do remember that, especially in the roller coaster and this and that. But, at times it loses my interest and it just isn't that believable. However, though, great ending that most people who see it for the first time could have never predicted. This was shot on Center Island here in Toronto, and the episode was the Season 3 premiere. Number 24, The House of No Return, Season 3, Episode 3. What would you do for a shot at being initiated into Danger Incorporated? Perhaps spend an hour in a haunted house where a poor little girl died ages ago as well as her parents? What if you had no choice and you were perhaps locked in there by force by 3 little bastards? Anyways, this is a pretty silly episode overall, but I placed it where I placed it because of the ending. It checked boxes off for spookism and aesthetic, and the main dude in the episode is hella nonchalant and ends up making a little deal at the end of the episode that topped it off very well and left me pretty satisfied. Overall, great story, especially as a short story from the Tales series. Number 23, Cuckoo Clock of Doom, Season 1, Episode 3. In an effort to pay back his sister for her antics, he ruins his father's new cuckoo clock in an attempt to frame her. Instead, he ends up turning back the hands of time. This ends in a cool plot twist. Not much I really want to say, but the overall episode is entertaining even as an adult. I actually visited the location of the antique shop and I put out a video review for this episode over a year ago, around this time last year. So you could go check that out.
And I will. One of these days.
Number 22, Let's Get Invisible, Season 2, Episode 13. Okay, most of us have nostalgia for this episode. About a bunch of kids who discover a mirror that can turn people invisible, until they find out what's really going on behind the scenes, so to speak. After Noah's younger brother Max disappears after swearing he'd leave it alone, things get so real. So many memories, man, renting this from the library. And it's not just nostalgia placing it in such a decent position, but it's one of the better one-off episodes, and from what I understand, the book is pretty good too. Also, this is an episode that you could tell had a well thought out and cleverly organized story. when one of the kids notices that the other's new earring was in the opposite ear of what he originally had it in, suggesting it was really his reflection that she was seeing and speaking to. Alright guys, so here we are. Like, this is the cream of the crop, the top 20, you know what I mean? So let's get into it. Number 21 and 20, One Day at Horrorland, Season 3, Episode 8 and 9. Such a classic and solid episode. It's surprising that it comes out of Season 3. I always looked at this episode as like a Season 1 or Season 2 episode. This time around, I finally realized it's from Season 3, but anyway, the second half is a little stupid and goofy because of the whole comedy game show aspect, but the first part, man, this is just incredible. In this episode, we join the Morris family on a field trip to Zoo Gardens. After they get lost, they stumble on Horrorland and decide to ditch the old plans to go here instead. Big mistake as they encounter evil monsters, devilish rides, and more. I mean, what do you expect when you go somewhere that doesn't charge you to get in? It's probably not the greatest thing as an adult, but I do remember this one, man, making me feel some type of way when I was small. This episode had a video game, I think, that was on the PC back in the day, and even had a console game. I doubt either one was that good, but it's worth mentioning. Some trivia stuff I found also. The kid who played Luke also voiced DW in a few seasons of Arthur. Yeah, man, I don't know about the whole Wheel of Fortune second episode here, but, you know, it's still one of Goosebumps' stronger entries. Number 19 and 18, Perfect School, Season 3, Episode 11 and 12. Alright, so admittedly, I criticized a lot of episodes in this video for not being scary enough, and we all know Perfect School isn't scary much, if at all. But this is most definitely one of the most polished episodes in the series. From writing, to directing, to setting, to acting, Perfect School is most definitely cream of the Goosebumps series. It's easy to watch and actually entertain me all these years later, even as a grown adult. It's about Brian O'Connor here, who gets sent to boarding school for the summer over bad behavior. Of course, when he gets there, things aren't quite what his parents had signed him up for. He's met with overbearing teachers, insane rules and regulations, and more. So, alright, he and the other dudes that got stuck out there gotta find a way out. Now, could you imagine getting stuck in a place like this? The episode isn't perfect. Remember, it isn't scary, so it does get corny at times. And also, it suffers from the annoying background soundtrack that plays from time to time during Season 3. But overall, I relate to that kid at that age and not trying to let anybody change me and being hard-headed and stubborn and this and that. So maybe there's a part of me that identifies with this episode, and probably even a lot of you watching this video. Top tier stuff. This is another one of those episodes that isn't based on the original Goosebumps books, any of those books. It's a short story from one of RL's spin-off book series, Even More Tales to Give You Goosebumps. They originally shot this as a regular one-part episode, but they believed in it so much that they extended its scenes as they should. Last thing I want to say about it not being scary, it's more of a suspenseful experience, as they gotta be on their best behavior while trying to figure out a way to sneak out to school. Because if they get
Your
caught...
program will be accelerated starting tonight. Get him out of here.
Number 17 and 16, Werewolf of Fever Swamp, Season 1, Episode 18 and 19. You've heard me say numerous times throughout the video that a lot of the frustration and appeal to Goosebumps episodes is simply that nobody believes these kids. And I mean, if you put yourselves in their parents' shoes, would you have believed them? Werewolf of Fever Swamp is probably one of the more annoying episodes of these cases, when their parents move to the boondocks to study deer adaptation by a swamp. There's news that there could be a werewolf in this area. The parents and sisters seem completely oblivious to how odd this area is, and Grady is the only one who explores it enough to see that they need to get the hell up out of there. And the rest I'll leave to you to go watch, but yeah, what a phenomenal episode. It captured the true essence of scary suspense. It chose an aesthetically fitting location to execute the story, and the kid who protagonizes the episode had a lot of heart. We love this kid. Good job on this one, man. And also, for whatever reason, it took almost 3 months after Night in Terror Tower for this to air. By the way, it's the season finale. But anyways, was it worth it? With a cool twist at the end and all of that. Number 15, Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns, Season 2, Episode 10. Every time I rewatch this episode, I always think how meh it is because of the beginning. The first half is just a generic Halloween trick-or-treating scare story, but by the end of the episode, you'll be pleased with how this turns out. This is amazing. I know most of you watching already know the entire show in and out and are just only here for the list, but Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns might have one of the craziest twist endings in children's horror. I know I keep saying this with a lot of these episodes, but I mean, it's for real. Remember I said children's horror though, but yeah, it's spot on. This list is well deserved.
Oh, by the way, we're pretty full, but I wouldn't eat all that candy. It might fatten you up, and we will be back next year to feed again.
Number 14, Say Cheese and Die, Season 1, Episode 15. Man, a young Ryan Gosling and his friends sneak into a weirdo's man cave and walks out with a camera. Well, runs out. The issue with the camera is every picture it takes turns reality into a correlating catastrophe, and sometimes after taking the picture, what's on the photo actually happens in real life. What a great story, and it's kinda scary at some moments on the low. Again, another upper echelon ep. Number 13, The Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, Season 2, Episode 14. Another super nostalgic episode from a lot of people's childhoods. You got dark nights in the middle of nowhere once again, a scarecrow that now you see, now you don't, and a bunch of cryptic messages being made from farmhand and son. Oh yeah, grandma and grandpa, they act weird too. This episode is actually scary at times, and it makes you feel some type of way when watching it, not at night, but those awkward, quiet hours in the middle of the day, like 1 or 2 p.m. I remember those being the best times to watch Goosebumps when I was a kid during summer vacation, but anyways, solid Goosebumps stuff, and you shouldn't be so surprised how high it is on this list. Number 12 and 11, Welcome to Dead House, Season 2, Episode 20 and 21. I wanted to put this episode higher, but if I'm being honest, it's not as mind-blowing as I anticipated and remembered it to be. A lot of it is of course because the first half takes a while to cook up, which drags it down a point or two for me. But Welcome to Dead House had such a strong second half that I wouldn't be mad if you had it in your top 5. Just before it found itself in the bottom half of the list, in came the last 15 minutes or so of the episode to blast it towards the top. The story of this family moving to Dark Falls and what they went through is certainly a story to revisit time and time again. And finally, a story where the parents are forced to believe these kids because they actually get caught up in the danger with them. I actually went to the location of Dark Falls and saw the actual dead house about a year ago in a neighborhood up at Lakeshore, which is a community next to Toronto's waterfront. Actually, most of your favorite Goosebumps episodes are shot in this part of the city, and I feel like these locations are what add to the vibe of why we enjoy them so much. Alright man, these are the Goosebumps 10 best episodes. Really, it's about 5 or 6 because most of them are two-parters, but these episodes far surpass nostalgia and these are top-tier acting, top-tier writing, choice of location for filming, delivery, overall, everything in terms of what Goosebumps' mission is. This is it. Here we go. Number 10, Bride of the Living Dummy, Season 3, Episode 16. Okay, well, this one's a one-off. I said that most of them were going to be two-parters, but man, Bride of the Living Dummy. Spoiler alert. Can you guess what the next one after this is? But man, Bride of the Living Dummy is an amazing episode, considering how weak the season it's coming out of was. It takes the usual slappy story we'll get into more as the video goes on, and adds another party to it in the form of love. It's actually kind of creepy the way this plays out, with it being hard to tell if Mary Ellen is really alive or not. Bride of the Living Dummy is the first of the only 2 episodes to be adapted from Goosebumps Series 2000 before the show ended. Of course, we talked about the other one, Cry of the Cat. Yeah, the little tussle at the end between Mary Ellen and Slappy was sad. A sad way to go out on Valentine's Day, but good stuff as far as an episode. Number 9, Night of the Living Dummy 2, Season 1, Episode 10.
Carol, Mary, Donna,
From Molyneux Caramel?
So, exactly 6 months to the day before I was born, this was the introduction to Slappy to kids across the West in the mid-90s. Another story of the kid who no one believes. The new family dummy is terrorizing the home, and Amy is of course blamed for it all. But it really is the dummy though. This is a great episode. Not the greatest Slappy story in Goosebumps, and if you're watching this video, you know what's to come later, but we don't even gotta talk about that right now. This one, though, is incredible, man. Good acting, good twist, and another example of a skip in the book series where the original Night of the Living Dummy was never adapted. And actually, this is one of the biggest things that get talked about in Goosebumps, in the Goosebumps community. But yeah, oh yeah, there goes the greedy girl from Trilogy in part 1. Number 8 and number 7. Haunted Mask, Season 1, Episode 1 and 2. Now, a lot of Goosebumpers are going to be mad at me over this. I know they are, because they notice I haven't mentioned the second Haunted Mask yet, but I'm sitting up here talking about this one. And we'll address that later, but for now, Haunted Mask 1, man, we got Carly Beth. All she wants to do is change her fraidy cat nature, and she's determined to do it. She just doesn't choose the best method to go about it. Now, this is a great Kickstarter to the series. It's a cult classic episode among fans, and we get a good old-fashioned horror story where that meets life lessons about self-love and self-acceptance. It genuinely is creepy at times, and it has some pretty good acting, and you just gotta give your hats off to the Haunted Mask. I actually visited the location of the shop. It took me a while to get out there, but yeah. And finally, like Werewolf Skin, this episode is only available on VHS for home media. This is shocking to me because it's argued by most to be the best episode in the franchise, and yet some of the worst episodes were released on DVD, and I don't really understand that. But yeah, I did a review for this episode last year, also with the Cuckoo Clock of Doom episode, so you can go check those out, and you'll also see me put the location in there also. Alright, number 6 and 5, The Haunted Mask 2, Season 2, Episode 11 and 12. Alright, I had to do it, man. A few years ago, I would have never imagined having this one above the first one, but, you know, things change sometimes, guys, and I had to do it. Haunted Mask 1 is pretty much a perfect episode, but Haunted Mask 2 took the perfection of Mask 1 and then expanded on it. It was great seeing Carly Beth and her friend again, and Carly Beth, you know, evolved and all of that. Of course, if you've seen the first one, you know what that's about. And then to see what happened with Carly on the first episode get remixed with Steve, and then it connects back to Carly Beth in the end as a story of revenge, caps off. I found it a little more edgier, eerier, and it may just be my own personal preference, but at this point with Goosebumps being a year into having its foot in the door on TV, you can almost feel the show being more polished as a production. So yeah, Haunted Mask 2. Number 4 and number 3, Stay Out of the Basement, Season 1, Episode 12 and 13. Now, you know, I hope nobody here expected this to show up earlier on in the video. Like, this is by far one of the greatest horror episodes to ever air on television, period. Margaret and her brother are concerned about how much time their father spends in the basement working with plants. Well, he is a botanist for that matter. Anyway, the 2-part episode explores the mystery of what on earth this guy got going on in that basement. And boy, is it one hell of an adventure. It doesn't waste any time on build-up, it kind of gets straight to the suspense. The acting is phenomenal from the father's end, making things weird and alarming. And it was just well executed. This is easily one of the best episodes in Goosebumps 95, period. And so early on in the series' lifespan. You knew it, you knew it, you knew it. Number 2 and 1, Night of the Living Dummy 3, Season 2, Episode 24 and 25. Night of the Living Dummy 3 is the greatest episode of the 1995 Goosebumps TV series. In a show that brought terrible episodes like Strained Peas or the overwhelming majority of Season 3 as a whole, it's episodes like this that redeems it all. Another story in the fashion of the first Night of the Living Dummy in the show, Slappy returns to torment another family. In this episode, he's more refined. The antics are more frustrating because there is no way to prove it's not them, of course. And Slappy even recruits some help. Honestly, Slappy is so much more of a nuisance in this episode, you start to really despise this dude. there's really no reason to love Goosebumps and not this episode. I mean, name me a better episode. The actor selection, the acting itself, the animating of these dolls to make them move around and talk and all of that, and the way in which Slappy is destroyed pretty much for good this time at the end, phenomenal. And I love this kid, by the way. This was the second season's finale two-parter and really marks the ending point before most of the show becomes underwhelming going forward. Don't get me wrong, season 3 did have some of, we know it had its heat. But Dead House, Lawn Gnomes, Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, Haunted Mask 2, Scarecrow Walks at Midnight, and this episode in one season, I mean, that's hard to top. Lastly, man, this ep is the last time R.L. Stine is shown on screen and narrates an episode. So there's plenty to appreciate here. Thank you so much for this episode. For Neil Shutterman for writing it, to Timothy Bond for directing it. I mean, for some trivia-based stuff, Mr. Mortman in The Girl Who Cried Monster voice acted Rocky, the other dummy that Slappy brought to life. Man, that's it. All Goosebumps 1995 episodes ranked. It would have been amazing to see what the series would have been like with another 60 or 70 episodes or so, even though the last 15 or whatever weren't the greatest. But by the time this video drops, we got the new Disney Plus series, which the community has been waiting for since like 2019, 2020. It's been 3 years since I watched it all, and I'm glad I watched it all chronologically this time because home media has the episodes all over the place. But anyways, happy Halloween and much love to you if you made it all the way here. And I want to know, do you disagree with some of my placements? Like, where would you have put it? Comment down below and let me know. What are some of your favorite or most hated episodes in the franchise, man? I also have tons of knowledge on the other show, Are You Afraid of the Dark? So if you enjoyed this episode and you want me to go over Are You Afraid of the Dark and rank those, you know I could do that. So, man, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like the video, comment down below what y'all want to see next. I'm out. Thanks for watching. Anime Back When.